The moon hung over the pines like a wounded eye, its silver light spilling across the wide lawns of the Vandal estate. The mansion rose from the misted hills outside Asheville, North Carolina, its Gothic towers clawing at the sky, its windows aglow with the warm flicker of firelight and secrets. The night was alive with murmurs, the laughter of nobles, the low growl of engines from luxury cars, the rhythm of a gathering that pulsed with ancient pride. Inside, the ballroom shimmered. Chandeliers dripped crystals over gold and marble. Men in black suits moved like shadows, women in silk glided like whispers. Yet beneath the perfumes and polished manners, something else thrummed, the scent of wolves. They were all wolves here. Not the kind from bedtime stories, but the kind who ruled territories, brokered power in bloodlines, and pretended to be human under chandeliers. And in the corner of it all, invisible among the glitter, Clara Evans carried a tray of champagne. Her uniform was crisp, her hair tied back in a neat knot, her hands trembling just enough to make the glasses ring faintly as she passed. She wasn't supposed to look at them, the Vandals, the royal pack of the Blue Ridge, but sometimes her eyes betrayed her. Sometimes they found him. Eli Vandal, the prince. Or, as the other maids whispered behind closed doors, the forgotten one. He stood near the French doors, shoulders hunched, his frame broad but buried beneath a softness that his family pretended not to see. His face was round, his hair unkempt, his tie askew like he'd tried to fix it and given up halfway. Every now and then he smiled at someone who passed, always too eagerly, too hopeful, but no one smiled back. Even the wolves ignored him. "Clara," hissed Marla, the head maid, catching her in passing. "Eyes down, girl. He may be the son, but he's not your concern." "Yes, ma'am." But when Clara turned, Eli's gaze caught hers. It was only for a second. Blue eyes that shimmered under the chandelier's light, unsure, almost pleading, but something inside her twisted. He looked like someone used to silence. Someone who had stopped expecting kindness. Later, after the guests had thinned and laughter had faded to echoes, Clara moved through the empty ballroom, collecting half-drunk glasses and crumpled napkins. The scent of cedar and rain drifted through the open doors. The forest beyond the estate was whispering, restless. And then she heard it, heavy breathing. A turn. Eli stood alone by the terrace, his jacket gone, shirt unbuttoned at the collar. His face glistened with sweat, chest heaving as if he'd run miles. "Sorry," he muttered, noticing her. "Didn't mean to scare you. I just needed air." Clara shook her head quickly. "You didn't scare me." He tried to laugh, but it broke midway. "You can say it. I look like I could use less air." She hesitated. "That's not what I was thinking." He leaned against the marble railing, looking out at the woods. "You were thinking it. Everyone does. I'm the heir to the Blue Ridge pack, but I can't even shift without." He stopped, biting the words before they escaped. Clara tilted her head. "Without what?" Eli's jaw tightened. "Without the others laughing." The silence between them filled with the sound of cicadas and wind. She could see the moonlight catching on his skin, the faint shimmer that marked what he was beneath, what all of them were. A heartbeat later, his eyes flashed silver, then dimmed again. "You're not supposed to talk to me," he said softly. "Marl'll have your head. Maybe I don't like being told who I can talk to." He looked at her then, really looked, and something flickered behind his exhaustion. "You're new," he said. "I'd remember your face." Clara's chest tightened. 2 weeks. I started 2 weeks ago." "Welcome to the cage," Eli murmured. He turned to leave, but before he did, Clara saw the faint outline of claw marks on the marble. Fresh, deep, hidden in shadow. He tried to change tonight, and failed. The next morning the house was chaos. The Alpha King, Gareth Vandal, paced the dining room with fury boiling in every step. His voice roared like thunder. "He's 23 and still an embarrassment. My son should be leading the hunt, not breaking bones every time he shifts." Eli sat silent at the long oak table, head bowed. The other pack members looked away. No one spoke. When Gareth's voice finally broke off, he stormed from the room, the doors slamming so hard the silverware jumped. Clara, standing by the wall with a tray of coffee, caught Eli's eyes again. For the briefest moment they were filled not with shame but with rage. That night she found him again. In the servants' gym, unused, dusty, its mirrors cracked from some forgotten scuffle. He was there, drenched in sweat, lifting, panting, pushing himself past exhaustion. "Mr. Vandal." "Don't," he said between breaths. "Don't call me that. Just Eli. You'll hurt yourself." He let the weights fall with a clang. "Maybe that's the point." Clara took a cautious step closer. "You don't have to do it alone." He looked at her, confused. "You offering to help?" She hesitated, then nodded. "If you'll let me." Eli gave a small, disbelieving laugh. "You don't know what you're asking for." "Maybe not. But you said this house is a cage." "I don't like cages either." The air between them tightened. And then slowly he smiled, a small, broken, beautiful thing. From that night on she helped him. Every dawn before the house woke, Clara met Eli in the empty gym. She watched him train until his body trembled, helped count his reps, wiped the sweat from the floor. She learned the rhythm of his breath, the way his hands shook when he pushed too far, the look of shame that came when he couldn't finish. But little by little something changed. He grew faster, stronger. His eyes, those pale, uncertain eyes, started to hold light again. And sometimes between exercises they would talk. About music, about the woods, about what it felt like to always be the disappointment of someone powerful. He confessed things he'd never told anyone, that his mother had died when he was 12, that since then, his father had spoken to him only in orders, that even his wolf had grown weak from shame. And one morning, when the first snow fell over the mountains, he finally said, "You're the only one who sees me, Clara. Do you know that?" Her hands froze mid-motion, the towel slipping from her grip. "I see you," she whispered. He looked at her then, not as a maid, not as a servant, but as someone who had touched his loneliness and made it softer. Something unspoken hung between them, trembling like a candle flame. Then a voice came from the doorway. "What do we have here?" Clara spun. Gareth Vandal stood in the shadow of the hall, his eyes gleaming with cold fury. Eli froze, his chest still heaving, sweat glistening under the pale light. Gareth's voice dropped, low and dangerous. "My son, training with the help. Tell me, are you building muscle or shame?" "Father." "Enough." Gareth's hand slammed against the wall, claws half bared. "You think you can change what you are? You think she can fix you?" Clara's heart pounded in her chest. The air thickened, electric with power. Eli stepped forward. "She's trying to help me. She's beneath you." Something inside Eli snapped. His eyes flared silver, bright and fierce. The mirrors trembled. "No," he growled, his voice shifting, deepening. "She's the only one who's ever looked me in the eye." Gareth's expression hardened. "Then she's finished here." The alpha turned and left, the echo of his boots fading into the silence he left behind. Clara stood frozen, her throat tight with fear and something else, rage, helpless and hot. Eli looked at her, his expression breaking. "I'll fix this," he whispered. "I swear I will." But as the snow thickened outside the window, Clara knew. Something had just begun that neither of them could stop. Something that would change the balance of power in the Blue Ridge Pack forever. The winter deepened over Asheville, draping the Blue Ridge in a silence that felt almost sacred. Days bled into nights, and the Vandal estate, so loud with politics and pride, grew heavier with tension that hung like frost on its ancient windows. Clara had been reassigned to the laundry quarters after that night. She hadn't seen Eli in almost 2 weeks. Every morning, she'd wake before dawn and hear the distant sound of howling echo from the forest, the alpha's hunts, and every time she wondered if he was among them. She tried not to think of his eyes, of the way his voice broke when he said her name. But sometimes, when the moon rose full and cold, she swore she could feel him watching from the shadows beyond the estate walls. It was the third week when he finally appeared again. Clara was carrying a basket of linens through the west corridor when a quiet voice said, "You fold faster when you're angry." She froze. The sound came from the old library, its doors half open, dust swirling in the slanted morning light. Eli stepped out from behind a shelf. Her breath caught. He looked different. Thinner, sharper. The softness that had once hidden him was fading, replaced by muscle that moved beneath his shirt like tension held too long. His hair was shorter, his jaw set with quiet defiance. "Eli," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "You didn't think I'd stop, did you?" She set down the basket. "I thought your father forbade me." His voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. "He did. Which means I have to train in secret now." He glanced around the corridor, then added in a low whisper, "At the edge of the woods. Midnight. The old hunting shed. Come if you can." Before she could answer, he was gone, vanishing into the maze of corridors like a ghost. That night, Clara slipped out through the servants' entrance, her breath clouding in the air. The snow crunched under her boots as she crossed the field, following the faint glow of moonlight on frozen ground. The shed stood crooked and forgotten among the trees, its wood split and silvered with age. Inside, Eli was waiting bare-chested, steam rising from his skin as he moved through slow, deliberate forms. Push-ups, lifts, balance drills. She stood in the doorway, watching the way his breath came hard and deep, the moonlight catching on his sweat. "You came," he said without turning. "I said I would." He smiled over his shoulder. "I wasn't sure if you still wanted to help the family embarrassment." "Don't call yourself that." He stopped. His voice softened. "Then what should I call myself?" She stepped forward, kneeling beside the weights. "Call yourself a man who's trying." Eli looked at her for a long moment, the air between them charged and fragile. Then he reached for the next set. "Spot me." And she did. 4 hours, until her arms ached just from holding steady. Until the world outside, the wolves, the hierarchy, the shame, faded to nothing but breath and heartbeat and the sound of determination against steel. When he finally collapsed, gasping, Clara reached for a towel. He took it but didn't wipe his face. His gaze found hers, steady and bright. "You know," he murmured, "the others think I'm hopeless. That the blood of a king can't save what's weak inside me. But you," his hand brushed hers. Just lightly, just enough. "You make me feel like I'm not broken." Clara swallowed hard. "You're not." For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then a sharp crack broke the silence, the snapping of a branch outside. Eli's head jerked toward the sound. His nostrils flared. "Someone's here," he whispered. The door burst open. 2 men stepped inside, guards, both wolves. Their eyes glowed faintly amber in the half-dark. "Alpha's orders," one growled. "You're done sneaking out, Prince." Eli stood, chest still heaving. "You gonna drag me back again?" The taller guard smirked. "Not if you come quietly." He didn't. The first hit came fast, too fast for human eyes, but Clara saw the blur of motion, the dull thud of bodies colliding. Eli moved like something reborn, clumsy but powerful, his body remembering its purpose. He fought with instinct more than grace, his breath ragged, his strength raw and untamed. When it ended, both guards were on the ground, groaning. Eli's knuckles bled. His eyes glowed bright silver. Clara's heart raced. "Eli," she breathed. "Your eyes." He turned to her, panting. "It's the wolf. He's waking up." A slow smile spread across his face. Not pride but awe. "I haven't felt him in years." The following days were chaos. The servants whispered about strange noises in the forest, growls that shook the air, the scent of blood drifting through the snow. The Alpha had doubled patrols, his fury barely contained. Clara kept her head down. But every night she found new bruises blooming across Eli's arms, fresh cuts hidden beneath his sleeves. He was changing faster than before. One evening, while the storm howled outside, Clara entered the shed and found him kneeling on the floor, trembling. His breath came in short, violent bursts. His skin shimmered, flickering between human and wolf, his body fighting itself. "Eli! Stay back," he gasped. His voice was fractured, distorted. "He's too close, He doubled over, claws bursting from his fingers, then retracting. Clara didn't listen. She ran to him, wrapping her arms around his shaking shoulders. "Breathe," she whispered against his ear. "You're in control. You're not your father. You're not what they say you are." He clung to her, his body hot with fever. Slowly the trembling eased. The claws vanished. When he lifted his face, tears glistened in his eyes. "You shouldn't have come. I'll always come." He stared at her for a long moment, long enough for something to shift between them. Then, without warning, he leaned forward and kissed her. It was desperate and trembling, full of fear and hunger and gratitude all at once. When he pulled away, his breath was unsteady. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Clara touched her lips. "Don't be." Outside, thunder cracked over the mountains. The next morning, the Alpha called a meeting. Every servant, every pack member, every wolf in human skin stood gathered in the grand hall. Gareth Vandal stood at the top of the staircase, eyes hard as granite. "My son," he began, voice echoing, "has broken the laws of our kind. He has hidden his training, defied my rule, and consorted with those beneath the bloodline." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Eli stood at the base of the stairs, shoulders squared. Clara stood behind the servants, her stomach twisting in dread. Gareth continued, "This insult will not stand. The girl is to be removed from the estate before sunset." Eli's voice cut through the hall. "No!" Gasps rippled through the air. Gareth's gaze darkened. "What did you say?" Eli took a step forward. "You can't control everything, father. Not anymore. Watch your tone, boy." "I'm not a boy," Eli said, voice rising. "And I'm not weak. I'm done hiding." Gareth descended the stairs slowly, his presence filling the room. "If you think your little rebellion makes you a wolf, prove it. Before your pack." The silence was suffocating. Clara's heart thudded in her chest. Eli closed his eyes. For a moment nothing happened. Then his body began to tremble, veins glowing faintly beneath his skin. His jaw clenched, his bones shifting beneath the surface. The air hummed with power. He gritted his teeth, fighting the change, pushing against years of fear and humiliation. And then something snapped. A roar tore from his throat, shaking the walls. His eyes burned silver. But when the light faded, he was still human, on his knees, gasping, broken. Gareth's expression turned to disgust. "Pathetic," the Alpha said. He turned to the guards. "Get rid of the girl." Clara's breath caught. Eli looked up, his voice raw with fury. "If you touch her, I swear." "You'll what?" Gareth sneered. "You're not a wolf, Eli. You're nothing." The words hung in the air like a blade. Clara's eyes filled with tears. She wanted to run to him, to speak, to scream, but before she could move, Eli looked at her. And in that look, she saw a silent vow. He would not be nothing. Not anymore. The snow turned to rain by dawn, washing the mountains in a dull silver haze. The world outside the Vandal estate seemed to melt into gray. Sky, forest, river, each blurred into the other as if even nature was holding its breath. By the time Clara woke, her room was already packed. 2 guards stood at the door, their eyes cold and impersonal. Her bag lay open on the bed, half filled with her few belongings. 2 uniforms, a worn sweater, and the small photograph of her mother she kept hidden under the mattress. "You have 1 hour," the older guard said. "The Alpha's orders are final." She nodded wordlessly, her hands trembling as she folded the last of her clothes. It didn't matter how quietly she tried to move. Every motion made her heart ache. Every glance toward the window, toward the gray woods beyond, felt like a question she couldn't answer. Would she ever see him again? When she closed the bag and turned to leave, a shadow moved behind her. Clara! Her breath caught. Eli stood in the doorway. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his shirt rumpled, his knuckles still bruised. But his voice was steady. "They said I can't see you," he said quietly. "So I had to." She swallowed hard. "Eli, if they catch you, I don't care." He stepped closer, his presence filling the small room. "I tried again last night," he whispered. "After they sent everyone away. I almost made it this time. I could feel the wolf pushing through, just under my skin. And when I did, I saw something. Something." He hesitated. "Not a memory. A vision." Clara frowned. "Of what?" He looked past her, toward the rain streaking down the glass. "A woman. She looked like me, same eyes, same hair. But she wasn't human. She was running through the woods, covered in blood. And behind her, my father." Clara's pulse quickened. "Eli, that's not possible, your mother. She didn't die the way he said." His voice cracked. "I think he killed her." The words hung in the air like thunder. Clara shook her head. "You can't know that." "I can feel it, Clara. Every time I get close to changing, I see her. Feel her fear. It's like she's still in me somehow, trying to tell me something." She reached for his hand, her voice trembling. "Then we'll find out the truth." Eli looked at her, something fierce and desperate in his eyes. "I'm not leaving you," she whispered. But even as she said it, footsteps echoed down the hall. Eli moved fast, grabbing her arm, pulling her through the back door, down the servants' staircase that led to the cellar. The air grew damp and cold, the smell of old stone and earth surrounding them. "Where are we going?" she asked. He didn't answer until they reached the far wall, a section of brick half covered in cobwebs. Eli ran his hand along it until his fingers pressed into a loose stone. The wall clicked and shifted, revealing a narrow passage behind it. Clara's eyes widened. "What is this?" "My mother's room," he said softly. "No one's been here since she died." He led her inside. The hidden chamber was small, circular, carved directly into the mountain rock. Candles still lined the walls, their wax hardened with age. In the center stood an iron table covered in dust and old parchment. Eli brushed the dust aside, revealing a book, its leather cracked, its spine marked with a symbol of a crescent moon pierced by a fong. "This was hers," he said. Clara reached for it. The pages were filled with strange markings, ancient runes, blood sigils, drawings of wolves and moons and human eyes. In the margins, a name appeared again and again. "Edana. Is that her name?" Clara asked. Eli nodded. She was part of something called the Hollow Bloodline, a branch of wolves born with dual souls, half human, half wild. They said they could see the truth hidden beneath lies. Clara traced a trembling finger across the symbols. "And your father?" Eli's voice darkened. "He was pure blood. He believed the Hollow were a curse. He wanted her gone." He turned another page, and froze. There, sketched in faded ink, was a sigil identical to the one burned into his chest, the birthmark he'd always hidden beneath his shirt. "She left this for me," he whispered. "A way to finish what she started." Clara's throat tightened. "Eli, what if that's why you can't shift?" He looked at her, confusion flickering in his eyes. "What if you're not supposed to?" she said softly. "What if your wolf isn't broken, just different?" He stared at her for a long, silent moment. Then, slowly, he closed the book. "If that's true, my father will never let me live." "We'll find proof," she said. "We'll show them who you really are." But as the words left her lips, a growl echoed from behind them. "Whoa. Not human." Eli turned, instinctively pulling Clara behind him. The passage behind the wall flickered with movement, a shadow sliding closer, dragging claws across stone. A pair of glowing amber eyes appeared in the dark. "Who's there?" Eli demanded. The shadow stepped forward, and the scent hit them before the shape did. "Familiar," Savage. Gareth Vandal. The Alpha filled the passage, half-shifted. His eyes burning gold. His voice a snarl that rumbled the walls. So, he growled. This is where she hid it. I always wondered if the boy would find her den. Eli's voice shook. You killed her. Gareth bared his teeth. She betrayed the pack. She chose weakness over blood. Just like you. Eli lunged forward, fury breaking through control, but Gareth moved faster. His hand closed around Eli's throat and slammed him against the stone wall. You think you can challenge me? The Alpha snarled. You think your mother's tainted blood will save you? Let him go. Clara cried, shoving at Gareth's arm. His hand whipped out, striking her hard enough to send her sprawling across the floor. Something in Eli broke. A sound rose from his chest, half scream, half roar. His body arched, eyes flashing silver white. The air filled with static, the scent of rain and fire and lightning all at once. Then silence. When he opened his eyes, they glowed neither gold nor silver, but white, pure and blinding. Gareth stepped back, momentarily stunned. What are you? Eli's voice was low, trembling with something ancient. Not your son anymore. He shoved Gareth backward, the strength of it shaking dust from the ceiling. For the first time the Alpha looked afraid. But before Eli could move again, pain ripped through him, a pulse of energy so violent he fell to his knees. The light in his eyes flickered and died. Gareth staggered to his feet, clutching his ribs. You can't control it. You're cursed, boy. He turned and disappeared through the tunnel, his growl echoing into the dark. Clara rushed to Eli's side, cradling his face. His skin was hot, his pulse unsteady. Eli, look at me. He blinked weakly. He's right. I can't control it. You can, she said fiercely. You just have to learn what you are. He smiled faintly, his breath ragged. Then help me. I will. She glanced at the open book beside them. The last page had a single line written in dark ancient ink, words that sent a chill through her blood. The hollow wolf rises when love breaks the curse of blood. She looked down at Eli, his head resting in her lap, rain dripping from the cracks above. And she realized something she hadn't dared before. Maybe she wasn't here to save him. Maybe she was the key. The rain hadn't stopped in 3 days. It fell in a cold, relentless sheet over the Blue Ridge, turning the world to gray and the Vandal estate into something out of a fever dream, its lights flickering against the mist, its windows bleeding gold across the drowned gardens. Inside, whispers spread like wildfire. Servants moved quietly, afraid to speak above a murmur. Something had shifted in the balance of power, something unseen but felt in every corridor, every room, every heartbeat. The Alpha had gone silent. No meetings, no hunts, no orders. Just the echo of his steps pacing the upper halls at night, the smell of blood and iron lingering where he passed. Clara knew what he was waiting for. Eli hadn't been seen since that night in the hidden chamber. The guard said he was locked in the East Wing, under surveillance. But she knew better. He was changing, fighting to control the thing inside him, the thing his father called a curse. And she was running out of time. On the 4th night, she slipped into the Forbidden Wing. The air was cold there, unnatural, as if something had bled the warmth out of the walls. The portraits of dead Vandals seemed to watch her pass, their painted eyes following her with suspicion. At the end of the corridor, behind a reinforced door, she found him. He was on the floor, shirt torn, his body trembling under the weight of invisible pain. His skin flickered faintly with light, veins glowing pale white beneath the surface like rivers of moonfire. Eli, she whispered, rushing to him. His eyes opened slowly, glassy but aware. You shouldn't have come. I couldn't stay away. She knelt beside him, wiping the sweat from his forehead. His pulse was wild, uneven. It's getting worse, he said, voice hoarse. Every time I try to hold it back, it feels like something inside me is burning through. You can't hold it back, she whispered. You have to let it through. You have to become what you are. He laughed weakly. You sound like her. Your mother. He nodded. She used to say the same thing. That control isn't about force. It's about surrender. Clara touched his hand. Then surrender to me. Just for tonight. Something in his eyes softened. For a moment, he wasn't a prince or a wolf or a legacy of blood. Just a man who was afraid and aching and utterly human. I don't know how, he said. Yes, you do. She leaned in and kissed him. Slowly, fiercely, with everything she had kept buried for weeks. The rain outside beat harder against the glass, the thunder rolling through the valley. When she pulled back, his breath hitched. Clara! The air shifted. A low hum began to pulse through the room, vibrating the floor beneath them. The light in his veins brightened, spreading until his entire body shimmered like liquid moonlight. His heartbeat thundered in her ears, fast and wild, syncing with hers. Then, with a cry that split the silence, Eli's body arched, and the transformation began. Not like his father's. Not violent or grotesque. This was something else. The light poured out of him, blinding and pure, and when it dimmed, a new form stood where he had been. A creature neither wolf nor man, tall and radiant, its eyes glowing white, its fur like mist and light woven together. Clara couldn't breathe. Eli, she whispered. His voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Soft, resonant, almost divine. It's me. She reached out, her fingers trembling. You did it. I didn't, he said. We did. But before she could answer, the door burst open. The Alpha stood there, his fury unmasked, his claws bared. Two enforcers flanked him, their eyes burning amber. Gareth's voice boomed like thunder. What have you done, boy? Eli stepped forward, the air around him crackling with energy. I became what you tried to destroy. You are no wolf of mine. No, Eli said, his tone calm but terrible. I'm something greater. Gareth lunged. The enforcers followed, but before they could reach him, Eli raised his hand. A wave of blinding white light erupted outward, throwing them all across the room. The windows shattered, the rain bursting inward in a torrent. Gareth rose, growling, blood dripping from his jaw. You think you can overthrow me? You think that thing in your veins makes you stronger than me? Eli's voice was quiet, almost mournful. I don't want to fight you, father. Then kneel. Eli's eyes hardened. Never again. The Alpha roared and charged, his body shifting mid-stride, bones cracking for ripping through skin. In seconds, the monstrous black wolf stood before them, massive and gleaming with fury. Eli braced himself. The storm outside howled, lightning flashing across the windows. When Gareth leapt, claws outstretched, Eli caught him midair. The collision shook the walls. Clara backed away, her heart hammering, watching as father and son tore through the room. Snarls, light, darkness, and blood blurring into chaos. The Alpha was stronger, but Eli was faster. His body flickering like light through fog, each movement fluid and impossible. The hollow bloodlines' power rippled through him, turning defense into art. Still, Gareth fought like a beast cornered by truth itself. His claws sliced across Eli's shoulder, drawing blood that glowed faintly white as it fell. You can't kill me, Gareth roared. You were born of my curse. Eli gritted his teeth, pinning him to the ground. Then I'll end it. The light in his hands brightened, so bright it burned through the shadows, and then he plunged them against his father's chest. The Alpha howled, his body convulsing. For a moment, the light consumed him, rising to the ceiling like fire. Then silence. When it faded, Gareth lay still. The black wolf's chest did not rise. His body shimmered briefly, then turned to ash. The storm outside ceased. Only Eli and Clara remained, standing amid the ruins of what had been the Vandal throne room. Clara stared at him, tears streaming down her face. You killed him. Eli's voice was hollow. No, I freed him. The white glow began to fade from his skin, leaving him human again, barefoot, trembling, streaked with blood and rain. He looked lost, smaller somehow, as if the weight of what he'd done had already begun to crush him. Clara stepped forward, wrapping her arms around him. He sank into her embrace, his forehead against her shoulder. "What happens now?" she whispered. Eli's answer was barely audible. "Now I take his place." By dawn, word had spread across the mountain. The Alpha was dead. His son had claimed the right of succession, but not everyone accepted it. Some of the elders called Eli an abomination, a creature of mixed blood and forbidden light. Others whispered that he was the chosen heir, foretold in prophecy. The pack fractured, and through it all, Clara stayed by his side, tending to his wounds, grounding him when his power threatened to overwhelm him. She'd never seen him smile again, not the way he used to. One night, she found him standing alone on the terrace, staring at the valley below. The moon hung low, swollen and red. "You were right," he said without turning. "The curse was never the weight. It was the blood." Clara stepped beside him. "And now you're free." Eli's jaw tightened. Freedom always has a price. When she looked into his eyes, she saw it. The sorrow, the exhaustion, the quiet terror of what he'd become. He turned toward her, reaching up to cup her cheek. "Whatever happens, promise me you'll leave if it gets worse." "I'm not leaving you. You might not have a choice," he said softly. "There's something growing inside me, Clara. Something that doesn't stop." Her voice shook. "What do you mean?" He glanced toward the forest, where lightning flickered faintly on the horizon. "When I killed him, I felt something pass into me. His strength, his rage, his darkness." He looked down at his hands, trembling. "It's still there." The wind howled across the balcony, carrying the scent of rain and ash. And in that moment Clara realized, the battle wasn't over. The real curse hadn't died with the Alpha. It had just changed bloodlines. The snow melted early that year. The rivers ran fat with thawed ice, carving paths through the valleys like veins under pale skin. From the heights of the Blue Ridge, the Vandal estate looked reborn. Cleaner, quieter, the great stone mansion washed of its blood and grief. But inside nothing was clean. Nothing was quiet. Clara woke every night to the sound of footsteps pacing outside her door. Sometimes she caught a glimpse of him through the crack. The new Alpha, the hollow wolf. His shadow flickering across the hall like a ghost. Sometimes she heard him whispering to himself in a voice that wasn't entirely his own. And sometimes she swore she heard his father's voice whisper back. The pack had changed since Gareth's death. The elders bowed to Eli's strength, but not to his light. They met in secret, muttering about purity and betrayal. Wolves who once served the Alpha King now stared at their new leader with unease. Rumors spread like frost over glass. That the hollow power was unnatural. That Eli's blood burned too bright. That one day soon the light would consume him and everything around him. And maybe they weren't wrong. Clara saw it first. The tremors in his hands. The sudden flashes in his eyes. The moments when his breath came in short, ragged bursts as if something inside him was fighting to get out. First he brushed it off. "I can control it," he said. "It's just residue." But she could feel the truth beneath his calm. Every time he used his power, to heal, to command, to protect, the light grew darker. Like it was feeding on him. One evening, Clara found him in the East Wing, standing before the broken mirror where his father had died. The moonlight painted his reflection in white fire. "You're losing yourself," she whispered. He didn't turn. "Maybe that's the point." "Don't say that." His voice was low, hollow. "Do you know what it feels like to carry someone else's heartbeat inside you? To wake up every day and wonder which one of you is in control?" Clara stepped closer. "You're still you." He looked at her then, and she saw it. His pupils glowing faintly gold beneath the white. His father's color. "No," he said quietly. "I'm not." A tremor shook the floor. Dust fell from the ceiling. Somewhere outside, wolves began to howl, long, mournful, desperate. Clara grabbed his hand. "You're scaring them." I should, he said. If I can't stop this, I'll become worse than he ever was. Then let me help. He smiled faintly, sadness softening his face. You already did. You gave me something to fight for. Then fight. He looked away toward the forest. There's a ritual in my mother's book. A way to break the curse completely. Clara frowned. Then why haven't you done it? Because it requires a sacrifice. Her heart sank. What kind of sacrifice? He turned to her, his expression breaking. The one who awakened the hollow blood in me. She froze. Eli, no. It's the only way. You're not killing me, she said, her voice shaking. His eyes filled with tears. Clara, it wouldn't be killing you. It would be setting me free. Then I'll live with your curse, she whispered fiercely. I don't care how dark it gets. You're not doing this. For the first time in weeks, he stepped toward her, cupping her face in his trembling hands. You don't understand. If I lose control, I could destroy everyone here. Pack. Everything. Her breath caught. Then I'll stay until you don't. Clara. I said I'm not leaving you. He pressed his forehead to hers, his voice breaking. I love you. The words were quiet, raw, and final. She closed her eyes, tears sliding down her cheeks. Then love me enough to live. That night the storm came. Lightning tore across the sky, shaking the mountains. Wolves howled from the ridges, their cries echoing through the forest like a lament. Clara woke to the smell of smoke, the air electric with energy. Ran. The light was pouring from the manor's windows, blinding, alive. The walls shook. The air vibrated with the sound of 1,000 heartbeats. Eli, she screamed, pushing through the doors. He stood in the great hall, surrounded by spirals of white flame. The sigil of the hollow burned into the floor, pulsing like a living heart. His body glowed brighter than ever before. His eyes pure light. You can't stop it, he said when he saw her. His voice was layered. His and his father's and something ancient underneath. It's too late. She stepped forward, the heat searing her skin. You can fight it. You always could. He shook his head, trembling. If I don't let it burn out, it'll spread. The mountain, the town, it'll all go. Then let me share it, she said, stepping closer. No, his voice cracked. You'll die. Then we die together. He stared at her, agony in every line of his face. You were never supposed to love me, he whispered. Too late for that. And before he could stop her, she reached for him. Their hands met in the center of the burning sigil. The world exploded in light. For a moment, everything, fire, pain, thunder, ceased. There was only silence. Then a voice. Soft, feminine, familiar. Anna. You've done it, my son, the voice whispered through the air. You've ended the curse. The light faded. The sigil stopped pulsing. Clara fell to the ground, the force throwing her backward. Smoke rose around her, her ears ringing. When her vision cleared, Eli was gone. The hall was empty, the air still. Only the faint scent of pine and ash lingered. She called his name again and again, until her throat went raw. No answer. Weeks passed. The pack rebuilt. The snow melted into spring. Clara stayed, tending the house, caring for those who remained. The elders named her caretaker of the Hollow's legacy, the one human who had stood with the Alpha until the end. But at night, she would go to the edge of the forest, where the mist hung low over the pines, and listen. And sometimes, on the quietest nights, she would hear it. A low, familiar growl carried by the wind. A soft voice whispering her name. And when the moon rose new and pale, a white wolf would appear at the tree-line, its eyes glowing silver, its fur like mist. It never came closer, but it always watched her. And every time she whispered, Eli, the wind would stir, gentle and warm, brushing her cheek like a hand she could almost feel. One spring night, as fireflies floated over the fields, she found something waiting by the door, a single white feather, glimmering faintly in the dark. She smiled through her tears. Some curses break in blood, others in love, and some, she realized, never break at all. They just learn to live in the light.